Our studios, we're WCMF in Rochester at 96.5 FM, and we have with us right now various members of the Jerry Garcia Band, Donna Godchaux, Jerry himself, and John Kahn. Here in our studios, we've just heard a track from the new album called Cats Under the Stars, and that was something called Rain, a Donna Godchaux song with Maria Muldaur singing.
No, it's Donna singing. Just
I'm sorry. Was it?
Yes.
Boy, I feel bad right now.
That's okay.
It sounded a lot like her. Maybe I should have put my headphones on all the way. Anyway, we were discussing different things when we were sitting in here while the commercials were being played. And one of the things that I've noticed about different bands around the dead and all the different solo careers and such, it seems that many different bands that have been around for quite a long time don't seem to keep the younger kids. Okay? The band gets older and the audience stays with them, but it seems with the dead, just talking to kids in town, that they're still into it, and it amazes me. Like 16-year-old kids, when you guys started, it wasn't, they weren't even listening to radio, probably.
Right.
What do you attribute such things to?
Well, we've been sort of lucky in having a very spotty record career, insofar as we've never had any real big hits or quadruple platinum records or any of that stuff. Yeah, we've got a handful of gold records here and there, but our audience, I think, is not there to hear us perform our albums. They're there to hear us do whatever we do. And typically at a show, there are people who request, a few like old favorites or whatever, and stuff like that. But we never get, gales of booing if we don't do that stuff. We've always felt very free to do whatever we want to do, because it seems as though the audience is encouraging us in that direction, So it works out well for us because the audience is dynamic, and they're accepting of anything that we want to try. And I think that really a concert, for me, a performance is, I like to go to a performance and be moved. And I don't think that you can be moved successfully a lot of times by certain formula devices that you can employ. For example, if you have a slam bang show that's really tightly organized and things happen just the way they're supposed to be tremendously exciting the first time, say, lasers go off and explosions on stage and all kinds of special stuff.
Well, for some
happens.
groups that are into theatrics,
sure,
perhaps that works well.
And that's neat, that's neat, but the second time you see the show, or the third time you see the show, and you realize that you're seeing the same thing in the same time, in the same pace, and so forth, and the same approach, generally, I think that ultimately gets to be dull, and that an audience doesn't really want to spend money to go back to that repetition.
Much less follow that band all over the country.
Yeah.
So when you take the stage as a group, do you have any songs in mind, or do you go, hey, let's do...
Right, that's it. We don't know what we're going to do.
A new experience.
Very seldom.
That's right. And that's because, fundamentally, we just have a very low boredom index. I mean, it would be horribly boring for us to have to do the same stuff all the time, the same way, each show.
But we couldn't do it.
We couldn't do it, really. We're just constitutionally incapable of doing it.
Really?
That's where all the fun comes.
Yeah, it seems to work pretty well, because there are definitely nights that are just total clunkers, and the audience realizes, well, they made a brave try, but no score, but then there'll be other times that'll be magical and miraculous. And from our point of view, we're able to observe these things that are in the form of an exceptionally high concentration of coincidence, based on when you're improvising. You're not really communicating in the sense of, now I'm going to do this. John, hey, listen, John, I'm going to play this lick now. It's not happening like that. Things are happening all at once. All of a sudden, we'll find ourselves in this place where musical coincidences are occurring way higher than the law of probabilities would allow them to normally. So it begins to be like magic, almost, as an experience. So when we get off the stage, then it's like, what happened? What was that? We don't know.
Everybody already knew what everybody else was going to do.
Yeah, and I think that the audience is that people come to that because there is something genuine about it. I don't know what it is. And I don't want to know, really. I like the idea that it's a mysterious thing, and that it's something that people require. I think, and the fact that we have the audiences that we do have indicates to us that, we're being encouraged in this kind of approach to music,
So you're playing off each other. Has that
in the
that
moment, and the audience is, of course, participating. They're involved as well.
Right.
They're right there with us.
We're reacting to them. They're reacting to us. It's all a whole harmonic situation.
What's it like on those nights when you realize that all of a sudden there's some sort of great rapport between the audience?
Oh, it's real special. I mean,
does it come across to everybody in the group? Can you just feel
when it
some
does
sort of
come across to everybody in the group, it's one of those things. It makes it possible for you to do 40 bad gigs, that are just terrible, in the hopes of having that one that's special. The special one is so special, that it keeps. Well, it's kept us doing this thing, pursuing these ideas all these years.
Without trying to box you into a corner here.
Oh, go ahead.
A few favorite moments like that, concerts over the years, as far back as you want to go. Any that you've had?
I don't. It's not for me. It's not a linear thing. In other words, I can't. You're not in a position when you're playing live shows. You're not in a position to compare yourself to your former self. In other words, say we had a great show last year, and then the last show that we did was just a clunker. Well, the feeling is everything that we've ever done added up to this clunker, and there's really just no point in even living. It's just all all added up to a bummer.
At the same time, we don't know as well as a lot of times we don't really know very much about whether we were good or not.
That's true.
And that's the God's truth. I've played gigs where I was mad. I left mad, and then later heard like a tape, and it sounded great.
Right.
Or the opposite.
Right.
It's hard for us to know what we get too crazy to really know whether it's good or not.
There are levels of uncertainty. They're very hard to account for. That thing that John just described is a very real thing. I mean, there are times when you just feel like, God, I couldn't quite get together all night. I felt like my guitar was a little out of tune, it didn't sound right, and everything was funny. I thought the grooves were weird, and things were funny, and then you hear a tape, and it just sounds wonderful. The audience response is incredible, for some reason. You can't figure out what the heck is it, what is it that's making that happen. So for us, that provides a certain kind of proof, in a way, empirically, that there is a certain level of something that happens that we're not really responsible for. We're not out there with our wills, saying, do this, do that. This music is now going to have this kind of emotional effect on the audience. A lot of times it's completely out of our hands in a very interesting way. And being in this situation where we're exposed to a high energy environment all the time, and this testing situation, it's happened often enough for us to know that there is something special about it, even though we don't know what it is or why or anything else about it, really, mechanically. We're just aware of it because of our own ability to test it.
Well, a Jerry Garcia Band concert is an event to people, too, to everybody in the audience. They haven't seen those other shows, where it might be, right? Yeah.
Well, no, an awful lot of them have, though.
That's
an
true.
interesting
That's
thing.
true. Your groups, people follow you all around the country, I know.
Yeah, and there are people who come, and they really do. They pay close attention, and they're following. What they are following is a dynamic progress. You know what I mean? Rather than a show, and they're not coming to see the same show. They know that it's not going to be the same. And that's one of the things that keeps them interested, just as it keeps us interested. The same sort of thing applies.
And they're willing to listen to some songs that aren't real great. And come back again.
Yeah.
We have a song up next here that you co-wrote, John, I believe.
I wrote the music part, and
let me ask
Hunter wrote the words.
Before we get into the song, how do you work with Robert Hunter? Now, Robert Hunter is your lyricist. How do you get together with him? How do you fit the music that you write to the words that Robert Hunter puts to the music? I mean, do you come together in a room, or... No.
Yeah, we do it all different ways.
Rehearsal a lot of
different
times.
ways. Sometimes the Garcia will have like pages of words and write music to that, or sometimes we'll write music that doesn't have words and give that to him. So it goes different directions. There's no specific style of working together.
Right, there's all kinds of fine-tuning possibilities. Sometimes I'll have an idea which includes vocal phrasing, for example.
Right.
And I'll sing the phrasing to Hunter, and he'll then develop a whole series of ideas based on the phrasing, and I'll go through and edit, and we work very freely together in all different ways.
For instance, edit 8 typewritten pages of Terrapin Station words into what eventually got on Terrapin Station.
Right.
Do you all still work together and live together as a close-knit family, or is it sort of fragmented a bit?
Well, there's
We
too
don't
many
live
of us to
together
really
anymore.
live together. That's
Yeah.
not really possible. Also economically, I mean, California, they don't really let you do that anymore.
Uh-huh.
You know, they have laws about how many people you can have that aren't related living under the same roof.
How many can you?
They do?
Yeah, they do.
Oh.
They did that back when lots of people were living in one house.
Oh, they actually dealt with that. I never knew that.
Yeah, they
That's
actually
nothing.
did that.
I thought everybody took it upon themselves that it was too crazy or
And
something.
basically, we all have our own scenes and families and so forth and whatever, you know. So it's we all are live near each other and we hang out an awful lot together. And I would say that if you had to divide our hours up, that we, in terms of life hours, that we probably live together
Yeah.
in terms of spending more hours together than we do live anywhere else. You know.
For instance, we can be playing at a place called Keystone in Berkeley, and having been working on a record or whatnot for days and days and days, and I walk in and Jerry and I just immediately crack up, you know, and he says, "Long time no see."
Yeah, right. It gets to be pretty silly at times.
At the end of the album, I remember we saw the sun come up 4 times through that little slit
Right.
in the ceiling.
Right.
Without ever leaving the room, you know, the room that we were working in.
Mm-hmm.
So we've chosen to work that way. Just, you know, I don't know why. Just mainly because we
We
can't
didn't
really
choose to.
fit
We
very
just
well.
did. It
Yeah,
wasn't. I
You
don't
have
remember
one of
choosing to do
you
that.
have one of these studio setups of your own now, like where you can go and just lock yourself in a room and work for days straight if you want
Right.
to.
This
Betcha.
record is the first record from
Months.
that studio. You know, months in this case. You're right. This record is the first thing from that studio, which is was partly funded, partly built from the budget that I was allowed to make this record. And it's quite well equipped. It has a really nice Neve console from England and a Studer 16-track Swiss machine, and it's an excellent sounding room. It's a very large room, and it really sounds very pretty. You know, it has very pretty vocal sound, very pretty instrumental sound. And this is the first record made in there, so, and we're really delighted with the results. We're real happy.
To get back to the song here, is a song that was co-written by John Kahn. John, why don't you give it a brief introduction, and then we'll play the song.
Well, it's like a reggae song, sort of. It's influenced by reggae music, which I happen to love a whole lot. Reggae music was the most significant thing that happened in terms of bass players for me in 10 years, maybe.
Do you think we've really seen reggae music bloom yet as far as how it's used in the rock context? Or do you think
You
there's
might
even
hear
more?
it now.
No.
Here's a good example of
Okay.
I don't know, but
the way we do it. At least.
I don't know that there's going to be a lot. We might have heard the best reggae records so already.
Yeah, it's
I don't know that there's going to continue a lot in Jamaica.
Yeah,
to tell you the truth.
I don't think there's going to be some kind of reggae explosion. I think that it's really like it's a local kind of music from a very small part of the world, and it has I really think a limited appeal. But from a musician standpoint, it has some really interesting things that like American music could use right now. You know?
Like what?
A rhythmic feeling, a whole approach to rhythm that has to do with like standing on the rhythm in a certain way. And the easiest way I can relate to it is to figure about 93 degrees with about 100% humidity, you know, in the middle of summer, just going real slow, you know. And it has this a steadiness to it that comes from that kind of island life, like the surf, you know, and all those things. And the thing about the bass playing, like John was saying, the sense of the rhythmic. The holes, the space is having rhythmic value in the same sense that in a positive negative image sense, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the holes have the same kind of rhythmic value that the notes do, which gives it a tremendous power and a really kind of a real lovely rhythmic thing, you know.
And as a bass player, a long time ago, a lot of, especially like rhythm and blues records, like I'm thinking of like old Motown records and stuff like that, the bass line was really one of the more important elements of the song. It was like a counterpoint to the vocal. And those were the most basic elements of that music, and the drums too. Music has gotten away from that now.
music gotten away from music that's designed to also listen to and also dance at the same time too?
No, no disco music is for listening and dancing, but I'm talking about music that is directly related to the bass line. It's something that sort of died out in America, and it's an element of reggae music. Needless to say, as a bass player, it appeals a lot to me.
All right, let's listen to it. The new album, Cats Under the Stars, the Jerry Garcia Band. This is Love in the Afternoon.
And we're back in our studios here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my God.
And we did not hear a song called Love in the Afternoon. Actually, we heard something called Palm Sunday,
Yes,
featuring Dave Bergen on harp.
Dave Bergen
does a very nice job, and we're just keeping you on your toes here at CMF. That's a Does It Sound Like Reggae contest, and there's no winners or losers, but that, by the way, was a Garcia Hunter composition, and now we're going to go back into the tune that we were talking about, Love in the Afternoon, a Kahn Hunter composition, and here it is.
And that is from the brand new album by the Jerry Garcia Band. Jerry, what do you think about stuff like Elvis Costello's Watching the Detectives, merging reggae and rock?
I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like it. I like Elvis Costello, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't heard that.
Some of that stuff I really like a lot. The so-called new wave music.
Yeah, what do you like?
What I like, well, I really like that band Cheap Trick.
Mm-hmm.
I like them a lot. They're great. Yeah, I think they're really great. And I just what I like about it is the spirit, you know. And,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, the guys are putting out. You know, they're putting out and trying hard. Like the whole American heavy-duty production trip, the L.A. trip, the slickness, you know, the glib slickness of all.
It's all gone.
Well, it's gotten to be so mechanical and so predictable and so safe, you know. From a musical standpoint.
Let's put some strings here.
Yeah, you know, it's a formula trip. It's almost a formula trip. So this other music is real raw and real nasty, and the players are not very good. But the spirit there, the spirit there is something I think that young people can always dig. That it
seems like when
I dig it. You know, I'm not young anymore, really. I remember listening to the FM radio, which I don't get a chance to do much because my car radio's broken. And I was in somebody else's car. And most of the stuff I hear, I can't get real deep into anymore. It seems like pop music has taken kind of a fall as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, me too.
And I heard this punk rock song. I don't know who it was by. And it got me off more than anything I heard on the radio all that whole day. I was listening to the radio. It was just like like some kind of blues and surfing music thing with the guitar blues licks that weren't right. You know, like not quite the right chords and stuff. And I loved it. It was like they were trying to make music.
Well, new wave music is working really well out on the West Coast. It's very popular, isn't it?
No, not really. I mean, here's the problem. I'll tell you the thing. The reason why is because the promoters have the unfortunate experience of promoting the shows and losing money like crazy, and then the audiences are usually such a drag, unfortunately, and that's mostly because of the hype, the press part of it. You know, that their behavior makes it so it's like a one-time only shot. You know what I mean? In other words, you know, for example, like Bill Graham would put on the Sex Pistols, although they're disbanded now, and would put on one show, but after that one show, he just said, never again, I'm just not going to do it again. I'm not going to expose my own people, the people that work for him.
I saw Bill Graham, I think it was on the Tomorrow Show, and he was with a member of the Jam, and he was saying, you know, I really respect your music, but as a promoter, I don't know if this is going to work too well.
Well,
yeah, there are some problems to it.
It was set up by the press before anybody ever even heard it.
Yeah, I think that was
read about that stuff before I ever heard it.
Yeah, that was what was unfortunate.
People go there expecting to get crazed.
And there's that...
you know...
well, maybe that's one of the problems with pop music now. The image is more important.
The pop music journalism. You know, pop music journalism, like everybody who is writing for the respective magazines, you know, the Crawdaddy and Cream and Rolling Stone and so forth, they're all anxious to be the first to recognize the new, you know, phenomena. You know,
mm-hmm.
That and I can dig that. You know, it's like a journalist wanting a scoop. You know, so this small element of activity in the English working class, you know, what became magnified way beyond its own real power. To deliver.
It seems like perhaps it started in England. It was really raw and rough, and now a lot of the more talented people, say in this country and in Britain, have taken sort of the values within the new wave music and redefined it.
That's
and
right.
It's coming out into stuff like Elvis Costello,
Sure.
which just sounds like sort of good R&B.
Yeah,
but if you listen to the words,
I think
a lot
different. They're going to be involved in a matter of progression as well. In other words, a player who's going to those players, the guitar player, the singer, and so forth, they're going to listen to their record, and say that, well, the next record, I think I'd like to play a little bit better on the next record.
Hopefully, really, yeah.
It's one of those things that's hard to avoid. I mean, when you're a performer, your instincts, regardless of what your act is, your instincts are to try to be a little bit better, unless there's something really funny about you, And I think that the music will have that thing of developing into something else, maybe,
Well, and something interesting about like European music to me is it basically derives from American music of some sort or another. Originally the blues, I think of like the Rolling Stones, but sometimes they come up with stuff that I really love that you'd never think of here, even though it's derived from American music to me.
You did a big Grateful Dead show a year or so ago with The Who. Now they go going back 10 years. Now, they're the original punks,
Yeah. They do it great too. I have a lot of respect for them, and I admire what they do. However, I spoke to Pete Townsend before their set, and he was telling me that they've been playing the same show for 4 years. The same show.
That's a little bit of a burn to
it is. It's a burn for them, and they were sort of
yeah.
depressed about it. I mean, to have to do exactly the same numbers in exactly the same order for 4 years in a row is, I really think, it's not exactly a sign of progress. And I think it's unfortunate because the guys themselves are capable of more than that. They're capable of better things.
They're good. They can play good.
Sure.
I can see that it ain't even fun. I don't think they dig it. I don't know why. People probably want to hear that set. But it wouldn't be fun for me, and they're musicians. I can hear that. I'm curious about them. They are musicians, though. They're good.
One thing, we have to get you guys all to a sound check pretty soon here.
Unfortunately.
But one thing before we wrap things up here that I wanted to touch on is you all seem to have to vent your musical ideas through solo projects outside of, say, the Grateful Dead. And you have for years and years and years. That must be a very important part of your music.
Well, it's an illusion, really. I mean, the illusion is that they're solo projects when they're really not solo projects. Like what we do in this band is no solo project. It's something that's really a group contribution. And believe me, it's not a matter of my own personal activity. I'm involved with people who have who care about music the same way that I do. We have an affinity for each other. We enjoy working together, and for me, a group dynamic is way more interesting than the concept of a solo project. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I've done one solo project, my first solo record, in which I was foolish enough to try to play everything on it myself, and I was really bored with it, fundamentally because you already know everything that happened. You know what I mean? There's no surprises. So the thing of working with other people means that somebody's going to shed a new kind of light on an idea of yours. It gives you something to work with. There's electricity there, chemistry, things like that.
Is it true, Jerry, that like the banjo was your first instrument?
Yeah, it was my first serious instrument.
And then you went to the guitar, and then the electric guitars. It was because it was more of an extension of.
Well, for me, the banjo got to be so.
Swiss watch,
right, like a Swiss watch. It was like a cuckoo clock or a Swiss watch. It got to be tremendously mechanical, and I just had a tremendous reaction to it. Finally, it was like I really can't make music with this instrument. I want something that moves the way a voice moves. I want to be able to play more expressively. I want to be able to have a whole other kind of it's just. I just burned myself out on the banjo, really, is what it boils down to.
It's kind of a one-toned.
Yeah, it's got one sort of idea going for it.
You ever think of going back and doing another album, say, like the old In the Way record?
For me, it was the music. John and I both
was on that one too,
right? And for me, the neat thing my whole interest in the banjo even was really not so much the banjo itself, but bluegrass music as a style of music. And it's the music that I cared about rather than the banjo by itself. So it's very hard for me to say sit at home and practice the banjo. If the music were there, in other words, if I were going out and playing with friends, a couple of nights a week, I could get into it, but really the music matters to me more than the banjo does.
Yeah, really, it's a beautiful kind of music.
It is. It's really neat music.
I couldn't see practicing that either.
No.
Jerry doesn't think he plays the banjo or the steel guitar.
Well, we're all crazy like that.
Yeah.
That's normal.
And he's talking about his first record. My 4-year-old listens to it 3 or 4 times a day.
I like that too.
Lots of different aspects to your music, for sure. Thanks.
I remember going in and watching you play bass on that. It was funny.
Geez, that was embarrassing.
No, I did it.
We should probably wrap things up here because you do have to go do a sound check.
Okay.
But you're going to be on stage tonight, starting around 7:30 in the Auditorium Theater, the Jerry Garcia Band, featuring Donna Godchaux, Jerry Garcia, John Kahn, Buzz Buchanan, Maria, Keith. You'll all be there.
Singing with Maria is great, too, for me. I haven't gotten to sing with girls in a long time.
We should stress that point, that Maria is part of the band.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. 7:30 tonight at the Auditorium Theater. Thank you so much for stopping down here and talking to us here on CMF this afternoon.
Thanks for
tolerating.
We got one more song here. We got one more song.
Yeah,
Jerry, this is one that you co-wrote, so we'll let you introduce
let me tell
this,
you about it.
and
Let
I'll
me tell
shut
you
up.
about it. This is about I don't know. This is an Old Testament song. Everybody knows about Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, and this song is about Gomorrah. Everybody knows about Sodom. Nobody knows much about Gomorrah. This song is about Gomorrah.